Grafikmetal is sponsored by the Organization of Open-Mindedness, NTBTSP, not to be taken seriously or personal, and Green Snoopy, because why not? Life is supposed to be fun. Guy of Angels Trust, Volbeat, the groove rockers are back with a new album out last week. Figured I'd give my thoughts, break down the art cover, and give Grafikmetal's reimagination. Got 3 of them. And this time around, I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to focus on the art first, and then I'll talk about the music. Let's do it. So, theirs. Well, I mean, much like pretty much all of their art covers. Not a big fan. I don't think that they really bring a lot to the table. And whereas I don't really care too much for the album title, God of Angels Trust, nah. I'll give props because if you notice, it's ultimately an acronym. First letters, GOAT. That's why I wanted to put an emphasis on the GOAT. So here's to the GOAT. Well, usually, this one included, there is at least an element that's really intriguing, but then it's just not well executed. I mean, Servant of the Mind, for example, it had an interesting idea. Part of the problem is the band logo, which is weird because the name is perfectly fine and it's already short, which is a huge advantage. But it's always been depicted very generically, and I don't like the fill to the outline. It always makes it really difficult to work with when it comes to, from a visual standpoint. Just saying. This one actually is the worst of the mock-up versions of the logo, because this time around they even added a background triangle like outline to the shape, and then they put the album title on top of it, and it just, I mean, it really is disruptive, the relationship between the logo mark and the rest of the artwork. It just, they don't work at all. Like, they feel like 2 completely different worlds. And you hear me say this all the time, I'm never a big fan of when it feels like, okay, we did the artwork, oh, but now we just gotta slap on the band logo and the name. So I dislike that part immensely. And then the other thing that is just not working is, I love the idea of the intent of representing this vibe, this like kind of like Twin Peaksy kind of like eerie vibe of an everyday, situation of like, just, is there even a person in the bed? Well, let's say for instance that there is, somebody sleeping in the comfort of their home, right? And then you have the eerie vibe of the goat coming in from the doorway, right? The atmosphere and the scene is not the issue. The issue is that they felt the need to have a significant amount of the elements showing in the frame. You have the lamp, you have the bed with, of course, the bed frame and the dollhouse along with the door and the goat. All these objects are fighting with each other. The visual hierarchy is completely out of whack, right? It makes it really difficult. And then, of course, you have the logo itself. All those elements are fighting with each other. And which is a bummer, because a few of the things that I really, really like is I like the idea of the scene. The picture, not necessarily the picture frame, but the wall pattern is very intriguing. Ornamental, old, vibey. Obviously, the goat itself is a great visual. What is it? The comforter, right? The quilt, right, on the bed. Just the nature of a quilt is very intriguing to me. The dollhouse is obviously interesting too, but not as visually interesting to work with. But those 3 elements, the ornamental nature of the pattern, the flower pattern of the wallpaper, and then the goat and the comforter or quilt. So, what the heck is about this blanket? sitting in a corner. Well, it's creepy. So, naturally, the blanket quilt it takes you back. It symbolically represents your home, your childhood, innocence, the innocence of the version of you before it was tainted, before it was stressed, before the so-called evilness came out. And the fact that it's against the corner of a wall, more specifically of a blank white wall, and in contrast with the wood, I think naturally, the wood to the white, heaven, hell, good, evil, so forth, that symbolism, to the duality of that. The cornering makes you feel uncomfortable, like you're being cornered. That stress, fear, that feeling of hopelessness, right? Which symbolically is driven home within the lyrics and the theme of the album, which again, just my personal take, nothing more, nothing less. Each and every single one of us is capable of darkness, of a wrongdoing, being evil. It's just simply whether or not we act on it. We all have the thoughts, right? The feelings, some more than others, but at least at one time or another in your life, you will have dark thoughts. It's just whether or not you act on them. Now, far too often, those who do act on it, they have a tendency, not saying all, but there's a tendency to assume that it was gonna happen regardless. And we were hopeless. We were, it was destiny. It was just within us. It was just always there. And that feeling it's a powerful feeling, right? And it obviously harkens, the day old pondering wonder of how much are we in fact control? Or is it simply helplessness? Nonetheless, the other most significant part to this is, so you have the cornering, you have the that uncomfortability, you have the duality, and then you have the blanket that represents the innocence. But then there's one other element, and it attaches itself to one of the most powerful factors of the human consciousness, is the dread of the unknown, the uncertainty. In this case, what is underneath or inside this quote-unquote blanket? That's the mystery, right? And the symbolic opening of the cracking of so many doors and avenues for you to take and interpret it in so many different ways. And then, of course, you also have the abstract nature of the folding of the blanket and what it could also mean. Is it actually a depiction of, the devil, right? It could be like the cloaking, which is another thing that a blanket quilt does a very good job with, is it kind of feels like a cloak. And that's often symbolically what we associate with, the devil. And then what's also cool is that then the photo, right, of the blanket in the corner than is on a photo. That means that the viewer is looking at the photo of it. It's the remembrance, it's the interpretation of that whatever happened already happened, that now you're reflecting on it, which there's something about that that's even more creepy. Just makes it feel a little bit more interesting, and then it's a cheat code for being able to then bring in the titling of the band and the album. And so this allows me, I could just put tape, like it's like it's printed on tape and it's scribbled up. And so again, it's a little bit more creepy, a little more interesting. That's the idea. Then of course there's an idea that I have as far as, again, I mentioned about the pattern, the wallpaper, right? I think that I want to explore something visually there as far as a little more illustrative, very high, dense saturation of colors, and see where that takes me. I think maybe a subliminal kind of message could be really interesting then in the pattern. Maybe on the fence about how much, like should it be like almost impossible to see or very easy to see, and balance that out. And then that probably just explore the goat, right? I mean, the goat is obviously, it's always, when you think of darkness and you think of the devil, and goat's always been a big, symbolic representation. So see what that looks like. That would be like the safe one. It's probably the one that everyone's gonna like because it's gonna be the most obvious and most metal, so to speak. So that's probably that'll be the backup plan, so to speak, if you will. Background, I think by nature of that, you have a lot more to have on there, right? You have this track listing, you got the copyright information and the production teams, and got all the other additional information. So that one, again, the background, the exploring the pattern of coming through with the wallpaper, right? Just explore that and see where that goes. So there we go. And then there is the music. Well, you can't say that they're not reliable and consistent. More of the same. What you see is what you get with them, and that's not a bad thing. More grooves, more balance of thrash and punk and rockabilly sometimes, and a little country-ish, and of course the Danish vocals and the tone, and upbeat, but at the same time dark, right? Lyrics are dark, but the music is a little bit more upbeat, at least for the thrashing side of things. And they represent that kind of like neighborly bar, like the it feels like home. They have like that kind of feeling like you're just hanging out with your best friends, having a pint and just sharing memories and stories and singing along, right? So cherish it, don't take it for granted, even though I'm sure people will. At the same time, I mean, I for one don't want to take for granted the energy that they cast and groove. It makes you want to get up and dance. It makes you want to sing out loud. It definitely inspires you to want to see them live. I've been fortunate to see them live a number of times, and it's always great, because that's the sing-along kind of bands are always a little bit more, they have a lot more potential. It's because the energy, there's something about the feeling of, being surrounded by a whole bunch of people that probably can't sing and attempting to sing. It's just, it's good times, right? Again, it's like being at the country bar, and like just the, whatever goes, it stays in that confined, safe space. It's just, feels comfortable, right? And which leads to the two things to make note of when it comes to this specific album is that one is that they're now a trio for the first time, because Rob, the guitarist, he left a couple years ago. You wouldn't know it, at least studio wise. I mean, it's hard to tell the difference. And then The only other thing is that he's being billed as being the fastest, at least recording wise, album they've ever done. I guess it only took him like 13 days when it came in and got it finished. So that's interesting and pretty cool. You can sense it. It feels like this is a band that is very comfortable in their shoes. They are a well-oiled machine. They know exactly what they're going for. They have a style, they have a theme, and they keep right to it. The beaten path is well and good if it's reliable and consistent. And this is a band that has a little more eyes and attention. So these days you don't want to mess with that. If you got a good thing going, don't mess with it. And I think that this, you can tell from listening to this, it's keeping it pretty safe and by the book. I do wish that there was a little, they tend to usually do a little bit of exploration. This one doesn't have as much. I'd say that when it is, it's probably in the middle, like track 5 in the Barn of the Goat, or Time Will Heal to Better Be Fueled, like track 7, like 5, 6, and 7, I think is the stretch where there's a little bit more innovation, exploration, but generally speaking, this is pretty safe. Not quite, I feel like it's a little more mid-tempo. One of my favorite things about the band, and again, I don't want to take for granted, is kind of like, they're very inspired by that, Swedish death metal, where it's like they're jam-packed. They're shorter songs, but they're jam-packed with a lot of variation in tone, speed, and tempo, right? That's one of the other things one of their great strengths, is that their ability to change things up immediately, right? Now, of course, because they do that so often, it makes it very patternistic, but don't want to take it for granted from song to song. That's what makes a lot of their songs so strong, is because of that change in tempo. But this time around, they don't have it's not quite as heavy, or the exploration of heaviness isn't quite as often. The speed is slowed down. They're not. The up tempo is not quite as common. They're not completely void, but just not as often. The breakdowns too, there's not quite as many this time around. Listen to it a number of times, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. Again, I can't really say anything tremendously good or bad about it, and that is not a bad thing, especially these days. I mean, it's becoming more and more of a cherished diamond in the rough to just have something that's reliable and that you can come back to on a regular basis and just feel good again. Like that's why I also wanted to explore the blankie and the comfort of the quilt and whatnot, because there's something there. There's something that it makes you feel. The band makes you feel. So
yeah, cheers. Get your hands on it. Highly recommend it. And let me know what you think of the design. Always curious to see the perspective. Again, another one of these very unusual graphic metal ones, in the sense that it's very not what you would expect from a metal or a rock band. Maybe a rock band, but definitely not a metal band. But this is a little more alternative, and just saying that they have a quilt too. Anywho, peace out.